Welcome to our review of the Volkswagen Tayron. This is the company's latest SUV. Now, in terms of the hierarchy in the range, this slots in above the Tiguan and below the Touareg. It is effectively the replacement for the Tiguan Allspace. Previously, what was done was they basically got a Tiguan and made it slightly longer and added a third row of seats. But this time round, it gets unique styling, so it does look slightly different to the other models that I've mentioned. It is quite a kind of square blocky design in terms of how the bonnet is designed here, and I'll talk a little bit more about that when I'm out driving. And you can see it's got the latest iteration of Volkswagen's IQ lights, the LED lighting technology. You can have matrix technology as well, and one of the newer features we see on a few of the latest Volkswagens is the brand logo is now illuminated, and also on the rear, which you'll see in a moment. Now, the offering in Ireland specifically is actually a relatively limited one. There's just two powertrains, a 150 horsepower 2-litre diesel TDI and a plug-in hybrid that has 204 horsepower combined. The interesting thing about the two is that if you want 7 seats, which this one you have, you can only get that with the diesel. Because the plug-in hybrid has a large battery in the rear, which gives it a driving range electrically of 116 kilometers, it means there's no space in the back to put in that extra row of seats. So you do kind of have to choose if you need more seats or you want to have a plug-in hybrid. Now, in terms of specifications, there is an entry-level Life model that's available on the diesel, and then after that all versions get an Elegance, an O-line, and there's also going to be an Edition 75. Now, that's a specific version for Ireland, and the whole point of it is that it represents 75 years since the first Volkswagen Beetle built outside of Germany was assembled in Ballsbridge in Dublin. This year, it's 75 years since that happened, so Volkswagen is introducing a number of Edition 75 models. Then around the back, you get some more kind of nice detailing in the rear lights. These, again, LED. You've got a full width light bar all the way across, and as I mentioned, the Volkswagen logo is illuminated in red here. This is an electrically operated tailgate on this Elegance version, and the actual boot space itself is very good. It's actually a lot of room in here. A couple of features that I really like is you can stow your tonneau cover in here out of the way. That's really useful. Often, especially with 7 seats, you need to take that out to use the rear seats, and then you're kind of throwing it in the garage or something like that. So it's nice that it fits in there. You've got a lot of other useful features. So if you do want to fold the second row seats down, well, you've got a little lever here, pull that, and that will drop them down on either side. And as I mentioned, you've got a third row of seats here. You've got a little pull-up latch here. You can just pull up like that. Very, very easy. Do the same on the other side, and that's it. It's super simple. Okay, they're not electrically operated, but it's very easy to do. And then if you do need to drop them down, there's a simple latch on either side, and they just fold right back down again. And as I mentioned, if you do want to drop the second row seats, all you have to do is pull this latch and they will then slide forward as well. Inside the Tayron, it's a bespoke design, again, to further separate it from the different models. And actually, if you go back on our channel, you'll see that we actually did a deep dive interview with the design team of the interior of the Tayron as well. So if you want to know more about it, do check out our video there on the channel. Okay, so let's talk about what you get. First things first. Volkswagen has done a good job of redeeming itself by giving us physical buttons on the steering wheel. It's a nice multifunction design. It's not too thick, it's not too chunky, it's slightly flattish on the bottom. O-line models get a slightly different OR logo on the bottom. And yeah, it all works quite well. You've got small plastic paddles on the back, and there's actually a good amount of adjustments in terms of reach and rake here. So, you know, it's going to suit a lot of different drivers in terms of height and size. So that's quite a good thing. Being all automatic now, it means you have a drive shifter here on the right hand side. It's twisted forward for drive, backwards for reverse. It's the same as what we've seen on many of the electric models like the ID Buzz. And then everything in terms of lights, indicators and wipers is all on this left hand stalk. Now, there's a lot going on that. So, you know, it does take a little bit of time to get used to, but you have basically means you don't have the same sort of amount of clutter back here. There's a small haptic panel on the left here for adjusting your lights and things like that. And there's also physical buttons again for the windows switches and for adjusting the door mirrors as well. So again, good that that's physical buttons, and you can also turn on the child locks on either side of the rear doors from this panel here. So that's a good thing. Parents will like that. There's a fully digital instrument display in front of you. You have a view button on the steering wheel, so you can go through a number of different displays and have it set up exactly how you want it. And there's also a color head-up display too. So again, you can have things like your current speed, navigation, turn by turn, all that kind of stuff displayed right in front of your field of vision. It means you're not taking your eyes off the road all that much. So again, that's another good thing to have. Touchscreens. There's two different versions. It will vary again depending on which market you're in. There's a 12.9 inch and then this 15-inch display. Quite a sizable display if I'm honest, but it's actually positioned fairly well. It does feel slightly angled towards the driver. It's very clearly laid out. It's got all the latest Volkswagen software on it. So you have, in terms of the layout, all your temperature controls are on the bottom here, and you have these haptic sliders here, so you can adjust it up and down. There's no physical buttons as such, but again, you know, learning from the failings they had with the early ID models, these are backlit as well, so that's a good thing. So it means even at night you can see this, and then you have your volume in the middle as well. So all that kind of stuff is quite good. You've got heated seats on either side. Again, you can tap those and have them come on quite easily, and your demister for your front or your rear window again is also there, so that's quite a good thing. You can also, in addition, pull up the climate here, and then you can have that all come up if you want, and then change it all around. So there's a lot of versatility there depending on what you might want to do. The rest of the stuff, well, you've got all the usual things you might expect. Of course, you can pair your phone, Android Auto, Apple CarPlay is all there and available. And there's also a digital voice assistant, which is powered by ChatGPT. It can offer you a conversation, keep you company on a journey, all that kind of stuff is built into the car as well. You do have a number of all the usual latest safety systems are there too. There's an assist button up the top. Some people do prefer to turn these off. They find them quite overpowering, a bit annoying. If you do want to do that, yes, you'll have to do it at the start of every journey, but you hit the assist button at the top and then it gives you everything there. Very easy to turn on or off if you want. There is a lot going on with the infotainment system, but it's relatively easy to sort through. And there's a couple of other nice little touches. So here on the center console, you've got this kind of rotary controller. It's a volume knob by and large, but you can then also use multifunction. So if you press down with it, and I must say it's quite nicely damped. If you press down on it, you can go through different options. So you can then scroll through your different drive modes, and then you can also then swipe across different things as well. So you can then go into your atmospheres, which is what Volkswagen uses to describe the ambient lighting, the mood inside the car, and you can actually swipe through that then depending on what you might want. And there's again a number of different systems or different options. You've got Joy, Energetic, Lounge, all this kind of thing. Changing those will then change things like your ambient lighting, including this front panel here. This fascia panel has the Tayron name on it, and it has different colors kind of that will come through these slices of what it looks like on it. In terms of materials as well, so you've got this going on. There's some nice quality materials here. You've got some nice stitching as well. And you can see where Volkswagen is really trying to slightly move up market with this thing. The quality in terms of looking around and how everything looks and feels is all pretty good. It's, you know, what we expect from Volkswagen, but it's Certainly it doesn't feel cheap in any places, so that's a good thing. Just getting back to practicalities then, because they're all automatic now, it means you don't have a gear shifter here in the middle. So Volkswagen has given us more space. You can put things on top here, or you can lift this up, and you then have two wireless phone chargers. So if you've got your phone handy, you can just pop it in there and it slides down and really holds it in place quite well. So it's going to charge all the time while you're driving. You do also have two USB-C charge ports down there as well, and I quite like that. You can drop that down and keep your phone out of sight, and hopefully it means you're not going to be picking it up and using it when you're on the go, because really there's no need. After all, you've got various smartphone mirroring on the screen. You've got cup holders here in the middle. You've got an armrest. You can lift that up and there's more storage underneath there as well. So again, nice and practical. You can also take that out. It has a little handy pinch and clip system, so you can take that out and have more storage in there. Again, there's a number of vertical slots, so you can pop in different accessories or different storage solutions you might want. There's also a 12-volt socket in there. So lots of good stuff. The seats themselves are quite comfortable. These are the main seats that you get in it. If you go for the Line model, you get a slightly different design seat, and it has the logo, and it's a much sportier looking design. But yeah, that's what the interior is like up front. Let's have a look in the back seats, because really in a car like this, they are every bit as important. On the back of the Tayron, well, there's a lot of space back here for adults and kids. One useful feature is that you can actually slide the seat bench all the way forward if you want, if you need more cargo space, or if you want to make more room for those sitting in the third row, and you can slide it all the way back as well. You can also adjust the angle of the rear seat, so you can have it a bit more reclined or a bit more upright, depending on how you might want it. And it's the same for that outer single seat as well, because this is a 60-40 split. In the back then, okay, I'm sitting behind my normal driving position, and for reference, I'm 5'9", so pretty average height. And yeah, no issue in terms of headroom, plenty of knee room here as well, and I've room that I can get my feet in underneath the seat in front, so that's all quite good. There's also blinds, so if you do want to have a bit of privacy or keep some of the sunlight out, you can do that as well, and they just then pop back into the door. Very, very useful. You've got some pockets in the backs of the seats and up top here as well, if you want to put a phone in while it's charging. Speaking of charging, you've got two USB-C ports here, and you've got climate control in the back, plus heated outer seats. So my seat and this outer seat can both be heated. The middle one, well, it's always a bit of a short straw with these things. It's a firmer base, it's a little bit narrower, and you have a relatively big transmission tunnel in the middle here. It's a big difference between this and a fully electric car, is that you don't have that flat floor all the way across. If you don't want to use this, obviously, yes, the usual thing is you've got an armrest pops down, there's some cup holders that will fold out, and you've got ISOFIX points onto two outer seats. But this is the 7-seater after all, so let me show you what the rear seats are like. Now, when it comes to getting into the third row, adults will need to be a little bit acrobatic, but I will show you that I can actually fit in here. Now, it is a little bit tight. I could move this forward if I really wanted to, but as you can see, it is very much a 5+2 rather than a 7-seater. Small kids will be comfortable back here, I'm sure, over a shorter journey, but adults, well, only put your best friends back here maybe. So the Tayron is all about comfort and also quietness. So you get things like acoustically optimized side windows, basically double glazing in the front windows, that helps reduce noise inside by as much as 5 dBA. So, you know, that is something you're going to notice. Now, the one thing you will also notice though is that you are driving a diesel engine, because even when it gets a little bit warmed up, there's still no mistaking that diesel sound. Now, some people won't really mind that, but if you want true refinement and quietness, well, you're better off choosing the plug-in hybrid, because, well, you'll spend an awful lot of your time driving using only the battery, thanks to that 116 kilometer range. Now I know that's a WLTP figure and you probably won't quite get that, or maybe only rarely, but still, given what the average daily commute is for a lot of people, that's still going to be plenty to be getting on with. Now, back to the diesel. Well, it's a 150 horsepower diesel engine we're driving here. That's 110 kilowatts, and it's mated to a 7-speed automatic transmission. One other thing Volkswagen has done is they've changed the actual bushings in that gearbox, how it's mounted into the car, to reduce vibration further and also therefore enhance improvement that bit further. This is the first model they've done it with, but they are looking at doing a similar method, a similar change to future models. So Passat, Tiguan, all those models that would use a similar powertrain will all likely come in and have those changes made to them as well. So that's another positive outcome that the Tayron has brought. Now the engine itself, well, yeah, there's decent power in it actually, you know. Okay, granted, I'm on my own in the car, so I'm not hauling a lot of weight or passengers with me, but it's eager enough for what is, after all, a fairly rudimentary 2-litre TDI diesel engine. There's a good bit of torque there, and yeah, the throttle is actually relatively responsive, certainly enough for what the average car buyer is probably going to be looking for. After all, this isn't an OR modelless or anything like that. You can get an OR line, but it's really all about looks rather than pace. Now, other markets will have other engines. There's going to be a petrol engine, there's going to be petrol hybrids as well, so there will be different options depending on where in the world you're looking at this. But in Ireland, we're only going to be taking this 2-litre TDI diesel and that 1.5 plug-in hybrid. And this diesel does have legs when you get it out on the open road. It doesn't really have to work all that hard. There's sufficient torque on hand, and generally it settles down to around 1500 RPM when it's cruising along, and at that pace, well, it just eats up motorway miles. Now, yesterday I did spend a good deal of time driving the plug-in hybrid, and even though I didn't set off with a fully charged 100% battery, it still did a huge amount of its journey using electrical power. Once that battery was depleted, it still would revert back to doing basically the operation of a hybrid car. So it would always try and use the battery and recuperate energy wherever possible. And all told, in the end, it still managed less than 1 litre per 100 kilometers over the course of the journey. So it's a very respectable figure. And that's really a plug-in hybrid that works if you are going to be diligent about plugging it in and charging it, and you don't have excessively long daily commutes. And let's face it, most people are probably driving well under 100 kilometers per day round trip, even between going to work and maybe doing a school run or anything like that. So that means that really you will be able to do, by and large, a huge amount of your journeys. You know, one German study showed that 99% of typical journeys could be done using only the battery power alone. So it's good news in that respect. I think plug-in hybrids like this make a lot of sense because you're getting all the benefits and perks of an EV, but you still have an engine to back you up, and you have that versatility, I think, of if you want to go further afield, you don't have to plug it in. Okay, set off full, you'll probably get, even with motorway use, 70 kilometers, say, of pure electric power, and then you still have your engine taking over as well. Now, yes, okay, the petrol engine's probably not going to be quite as efficient because it's got to then pull all that hybrid system around. This is where the diesel comes in, but again, it's about trying to pick the right tool for the job. You know, if you are the sort of person that, you know, crisscrosses the country all the time, doing a lot of motorway mileage, sure, the diesel's going to make a lot more sense for you. Equally, if you're doing a lot of towing or you're pulling trailers or horse boxes or whatever, you know, this diesel engine is probably going to be the right job for you. If you are only doing very short journeys and just going around town and all that, the diesel's not going to be for you. Plug-in hybrid would be a lot better. Also, I think it would be worthwhile for Volkswagen to introduce the petrol version, not the plug-in hybrid, but a petrol mild hybrid for that kind of use case. But this diesel, well, it feels just like the last few Volkswagen diesels we've had in various different models, but it definitely is that little bit more responsive. I mentioned that a little bit earlier. It does feel less laggy when you do have to, quickly roll on the power, whether you're doing an overtake or you want to just get past somebody or whatever. It definitely feels, I wouldn't say urgent, it just feels a little bit more alert. And really, that's where diesels sometimes often lacked. They never really, sometimes they can feel a little bit gutless. This, no, it feels pretty good. It's not a big performance car. It's only got 150 horsepower, but it's enough for most families. It's enough for most average people. Would you get a diesel over a plug-in hybrid? Well, it really comes back to what I was saying just now. It depends on how you're going to use this thing. Okay, maybe the deciding factor will be the seats in the back. It's a little bit annoying that you can't get a 7-seat plug-in hybrid, but I guess from a packaging constraint perspective, you just have to decide you can't have that long range electric drive with a plug-in hybrid and still have a third row of seats back there. So if you need extra seats, well, maybe this is what you need. Alternatively, maybe you just want to have an electric car like an ID Buzz, which now you can have in a 7-seater as well. So if you want to know about that, check out our review of that too. One of the features I do like in the Volkswagen Tayron is the travel assist, and it's in a number of Volkswagen cars. Effectively what it is it's a combination of adaptive cruise control, lane keep assist, road sign recognition as well. And effectively what it does is it just gives you a helping hand. It's great on a long journey. It's great if you have, one of those awful commutes where you're in stop-start traffic all the time. Just takes some of that load off you as a driver. Obviously, it's not it's not an autonomous system or anything like that, but it does do a pretty good job. It's quite consistent in how it operates and how it functions. And for example, a truck has just moved out of the way in front of me, and it's now picking up speed again while always maintaining a safe distance. It can also change the speed automatically when you go from maybe an 80 to a 100 zone. It's just very good at that, but equally it's also quite good at slowing down just at the right point for when you get a drop in speed limit zone as well. It's a good system. I think it works really well. It's one of the functions on the steering wheel. You do also get normal ACC, and there's also an electronic speed limit function as well. So if you do want to make sure that you never accidentally creep over the speed limit, you have that function too. And look, there's plenty of similar systems on the market out there. Volkswagen is by no means the only people doing this, but it's just some people might be watching this review and might not be aware of how these systems work. So that's just why I've mentioned it. So yeah, the Volkswagen Tayron, it's a comfortable car. There's a degree of refinement there for sure. It's not exactly an exciting car to drive. Then again, it's not really setting out to be an exciting car to drive. Volkswagen does say that it really wants to target comfort and that sort of refinement I mentioned, and yeah, it does those things pretty well. It is a little bit forgetful to drive. It's not really a memorable thing. It's certainly not the sort of thing that you want to maybe get up early on a Sunday morning and go for a drive. But from a practical perspective, and let's face it, that's why you're going to consider a car like this. Well, there's a lot of storage around. It's comfortable. It's well appointed. The quality inside certainly seems to be very, right up there as the best of what we've seen from Volkswagen of late. In terms of the infotainment and all this, yes, I think the 15-inch touchscreen is borderline too big almost. But then there's plenty, it's big enough actually for anyone sitting behind you to be able to see the map or see whatever else is going on. So maybe that alone will provide a little bit of entertainment for your passengers. But otherwise, yes, it's very much a Volkswagen in the sense of how it's all put together, how it feels, the predictability in how it drives. And it does manage to fulfill the role of a 7-seater, albeit it is a little bit borderline of being a 5+2 rather than a true 7-seater. So that's our first drive review of the new Volkswagen Tayron. There's a good option there between diesel. It's going to really appeal to a lot of people. That's one thing we hear from our readers and viewers all the time, is they really still want diesel engines, especially if it comes to towing or pulling trailers. And well, you know, the most powerful version of this can pull up to 2.5 tons. Equally, the plug-in hybrid does have a lot to offer. It has a long, very, very usable battery range. And I think most people will basically have what is effectively an electric vehicle for their Monday to Friday commute, but then obviously you have the backup of a combustion engine if you want to go that little bit further afield and not have to plan charging stops. Anyway, if you want to know more about the Volkswagen Tayron, head over to our website. It's CompleteCar.ie. You'll find it linked in the description below. It's a great resource for finding your next new car, as well as keeping up with all the latest car news. We'd also love to hear your feedback on this. Tell us what you think about this vehicle. Is this something that's on your shopping list? We'd love to know. Anyway, thanks for watching.